So you've decided to buy a katana, but you don't know exactly which one. You've narrowed it down to the 50 or the 100, but now Boss have released this. This is the Katana 50 EX, which combines some of the features of the 100 with the smaller size and weight of the 50. So that buying decision has just become a little bit more difficult. But don't worry, in this video, I'm going to take a look at what the Katana 50 EX offers, so you can decide which katana is the right one for you. Let me start off by saying that the Katana range of amps is the best-selling range of amps in the world ever for a reason. And whether you go for the 50, the 50EX, or the 100, you're going to be in for a good time. And the 50EX is an addition to the range. It does not replace the 50, which means you can pick up some fantastic bargains on the 50 now. But let's find out what the 50EX can do that the 50 cannot. The Katana 50 EX is more versatile for live use because the old one, I hate saying that, the 50 only accepts a foot switch with 2 buttons, such as this one, and it doesn't even have to be made by Boss. This one is a Blackstar one. As long as it's a 2-button switch with a stereo plug, it will work with the Katana 50. And this enables you to switch between channel 1 and channel 2, and bank A and bank B, giving you access to all 4 channels of the Katana 50. However, the 50 EX takes this, the GAFC EX or the older GAFC, and this allows you to switch between all 8 channels of the Katana 50 EX and turn effects on and off individually within those presets. So it operates exactly the same way that a Katana 100 would do, and this is one of the main missing features at the 50 that fans of katanas have been complaining about for quite a while. So that's reason number 1, you should maybe get a Katana 50 EX. Wait a minute, did I say 8 channels? Yes, I did. The Katana 50 has only 4 channels, but the 50 EX has 8 channels, which you can access using either the GAFC style controller or the Tone Studio software on your PC or Mac. So, if 4 channels is not enough to store all those wonderful presets you've downloaded or made yourself, then you might want to go for the 50 EX. New feature number 3 is the line out on the back of the amp. So if you need to take a signal from your amplifier to a PA system or to a recording interface and you don't have a mic, or you just want to get a clean signal that you can control, then this one has a line out, whereas the 50 only had a recording out. And what that did was, if you took a signal from the 50 and put that to a mixing desk or an audio interface, it would mute this internal speaker. With this one, it's the same as the 100. So you have the recording out, but you also have the line out, which does not mute the internal speaker. So you can monitor your tones with the Katana 50 EX and also send a signal simultaneously to another device. Furthermore, you now have access to custom settings in the Tone Studio software. So you can select what kind of mic you want and the position of that mic as if it were placed on the speaker. Pretty cool. New feature number 4 is the new stereo expand mode that's in the Mark II katanas. So, inside the katana, which is a mono amp, some of the effects in there can be stereo, and you can utilize those stereo-ness by linking 2 Mark II katanas together using the line out and the power amp in. But the cheapest way to do that in the past was to buy a 100 Mark II and a 50 Mark II. But they'd be mismatched because there's different speakers and they're different sized amps. They sound different. Now, the cheapest and the most best way to match them if you have, if you want 2 amps that are the same size, is to buy a 50 Mark II EX and a 50 Mark II. And this is cool if you want the same sized amp on stage or wherever, because for me, matching a 100 with a 50 never worked that well because they sound different. So now you can have 2 identical amplifiers with the same cab, same speaker, sounding the same in your stereo effects. And not only is it cheaper, it's also lighter and smaller. And I dare say I could probably carry 2 Katana 50s pretty far. New feature number 5, you're going to love this. If you're a long-time user of Katana amps, come here, don't tear it, keep it pristine. The Katana 50 Mark II EX comes with a new piece of cardboard. That's where the tone is. Put that back quickly before the tone leaks out. So what's the same with the two 50-watt katanas? What do the 50 and the 50EX share in common? Well, everything else. The sounds are the same, the onboard effects are the same, the panel on the top is the same, the speaker inside is the same, the cab is the same, the weight is almost the same. The 50EX is 100 grams heavier, which is about the weight of a medium banana. So for all intents and purposes, I'm saying they weigh the same also. But let's talk about the differences between the 50EX and the 100. This is the 100 Mark II. That's still the 50 Mark II EX. And the most obvious feature missing from the 50EX that the 100 has is the effects loop. So, very briefly, an effects loop is a place where you can put some kind of effect in between the preamp of the katana and the power amp of the katana, meaning that you can choose your crunch style amp if you like, then have that crunch sound go into an external reverb pedal, then back out of the reverb pedal into the power amp of the katana, making it louder. So if you want to use an amp with external effects, then maybe you want to go for the 100. And if you want to use a looper and put that in the effects loop and record a loop of clean guitar and then change the patch and have a lead guitar tone go over top of that loop, then again, you might want to look at getting an effects loop amp, which is the 100 and above. Now, I know that the fact that the 50EX does not have an effects loop is still annoying a few katana users. And hello, by the way, if you're watching this from the Katana Facebook group. Yeah, I understand that that's frustrating that it doesn't have an effects loop. It's the one thing that's missing. But I think there are several reasons why the 50EX does not have an effects loop. Reason number one is that the amp section itself of the Katana 50 and 50EX is slightly smaller than the amp section of the 100. Boss didn't just take a 100 amp, stick it in a 50 cab, disable some features and cut half the power. This is smaller. So what I'm saying is there just might not be space in this amp for an effects loop. Possible reason number two is slightly less easy to digest than the first one, and it is that they can't give you everything in the 50EX. They've got to give you a reason to buy the next model up. So if you want an effects loop, you've got to spend a little bit more money and get the 100. If you want MIDI, the 100 doesn't have it. You've got to go up again. So it's that Apple style of pricing. Not easy to talk about, not easy to get confirmed, but certainly a possible reason why this doesn't have an effects loop. Reason number three that the 50EX does not have an effects loop comes down to design. It's the most logical way that I can figure this out and relates to the reason that this amp exists. I now think that the Katana Mark II 50EX is the most perfect grab-and-go amp in the world. And because it's grab-and-go, it's the kind of amp that you would take with you and a GAFC or GAFC-EX and turn up to the gig without a pedal board. It's small, it's lightweight, and it's easy to carry with a guitar. And if you want to have a pedal board with an effects loop, go for the 100. You know, you might have more invested in your pedal board. However, if you want something you can just pick up, take to a show or a jam session or anything and only rely on the amp itself and maybe the external controller, the 50EX doesn't need an effects loop. If you disagree with that, of course, let me know in the comments section. And just to draw a line under this, putting an effects loop in the 50EX might have required new parts to be made and more machining and therefore more costs. So therefore, if it had an effects loop, we'd be complaining that it is far too expensive and just get the 100, which is something we're going to talk about, by the way. So back to what the 100 has that the 50EX does not. Better sound. The 100 has an upgraded speaker, according to Boss's marketing, and it is a different sound, not just because of the speaker, but also because of the cab size. And the 100 has a more open, more seemingly flat sound, so it seems to reach parts the 50 and the 50EX do not. The 50EX and the 50 is a more thrashy sound, a more sort of stab you in the face kind of tone. And when I first bought my first katana, I had to choose between the 50 and the 100, and there's a video of it from back in the day. And I really couldn't decide because I liked the sound of both. Incidentally, I eventually went for the 100 because I wanted the effects loop, which I ended up never really using. But that's for another day. The sound is different with these two amps. On the same patch, the same settings, the amps will sound different. Here's an example of that. I'll play the same thing through the same patch on both amps and hear the difference. And the fourth and final thing that I can find in the differences between these two amps is the presence knob. So the 100 has a presence knob, the 50 and 50EX do not have presence knobs. However, you can adjust the presence on either amp using the Tone Studio software or some third-party controllers or third-party software. So far, I think the difference between the 50 and the 50EX is pretty clear, and if you want more features, you should go for the 50EX. But the real trouble lies in, do you go for the 50EX or the 100? So that old conundrum is still alive. And one of the major factors that I don't think people are considering since this has been released is the weight difference. And just to show you something, here's how they sound when you drop them. When I was preparing for this video, I picked up the 100 off the shelf in my other room and thought, yeah, that's familiar. I remember the feel of this amp. I remember carrying that to rehearsals, etc. Then I picked up the 50EX and I genuinely snort laughed because it is comically light. Neither of these amps are what I would consider heavy, and they're a joy to be able to just stick in the back of the car and go to a gig or practice. But this 50 is laughably light. This one, you'll feel it after a while of carrying it because of that single carrying handle. This one, I could carry all day long, I think, which I'm not going to test in this video. But this is 25% heavier than that. Something to think about. The 100 is 6 centimeters wider than that. It is 1 centimeter deeper than that. And it is 8 centimeters taller than that. And that might not seem like very much, but if you're trying to pack a car conservatively and you've got a small boot or you're trying to put it on a seat, that will make a difference. And if you're traveling by public transport, that will fit on the seat next to you on the bus or the train or whatever. This will probably poke out into the aisle and is something you should consider if you're traveling with the amps. So which amp should you buy? Well, obviously only you can decide that, and hopefully this video so far has helped you get closer to that decision. If you're still not quite decided, here's some things that I think would help further. Until now, I've always recommended to skip the Katana 50 and just get the 100 because of those extra features, and the GAFC compatibility just makes it a better investment. The only time that I would say get the 50 is that if your budget really didn't stretch that far, because the 50 is still a fantastic amp. But now the 50EX exists, I have to really challenge that statement and go back and say, it's really not that clear. The differences and the similarities between the 50EX and the 100 are so close now. I think it comes down to just a few factors. And I think the best way to make a decision on which katana to get is decide what your needs are. And the first need is how much money you want to spend. Before I quote prices, all correct prices and links to all the katanas are in the video description. They are affiliate links, so if you use them, I get a little bit of a kickback at no extra cost to you. Thank you for doing that. I will check the prices currently at time of recording this video. So, the Katana 50 Mark II is €264 or $269. The Katana 50 Mark II EX is €369 or $339. So let's say $100 more for the 50EX. The Katana 100 Mark II is €389 or $379. So there's a huge gap between the 50 and the 50EX, not such a huge gap between the 50EX and the 100. And the GAFC-EX, for example, is €159 and $149. Again, check the links in the video description for up-to-date pricing. Now, here comes the debate that I've seen online. The price difference between the 50EX and the 100 is so close that people are saying, well, why not just go for the 100? And they're kind of right. However, the 50EX is now the best grab-and-go amplifier I've ever played. The 50 had its shortcomings. The 100 fixed all those shortcomings, in my opinion. Now, if you are just taking an amp to go to practice, you've got some patches sorted, you have a GAFC or a GAFC-EX, and all that is enough for you, or maybe an expression pedal for a while, you really have everything. This 50EX is so small, so lightweight, so convenient that it makes absolute sense to go for this. If you're using a pedal board, you might want to think about the 100 with the effects loop. But honestly, the reverbs and the delays in this are enough to get by anybody unless you have a specific reverb. Like if you're doing, I don't know, surf music or ambient music. You could still do it with this, but if you have a specific sound, the 100 might be better for you. I'm going to say that for most people, the 50EX is the way to go. I would also say still avoid the 50 non-EX unless you can get a really good deal on it, because lots of people are going to be going for this one, which I think you should. However, if you're after a massive bargain, then the original 50 Mark I is now peanuts. Then the 50 Mark II is being sold by people who are upgrading to the 50 Mark II EX. So, there's still a lot of factors. I know I haven't helped you decide entirely. Well, I can't make a decision for you, but this is now the amp that I recommend you get for most people, hands down. So to summarize all the important bits, the 50EX is a Katana 100 without an effects loop. Top reasons to buy a 100 are you have the extra cash and space and weight are not an issue. Top reasons to buy a 50EX is that space is an issue and weight is an issue because you may be carrying it to small gigs, or you just play at home, or your Katana is all your effects and all your amp and you don't use external pedals. And something to note is that if you're recording via USB, all Katanas sound the same anyway, unless you're using, something in the effects loop. So if you're just recording at home and you use your USB, go for the 50. And finally, Boss think the Katana amps sound so good that they even sound good with a guitar that's out of tune, because none of the Katanas have a tuner. Zero. So even though I said this is the best grab-and-go amp in the world, you still need to bring at least a clip-on tuner. But, why not? $10 will get you there. Or your phone, for that matter. I should probably make a video on tuners. Anyway, you are now a member of the End of the Video Club, and to prove that you are a member of this prestigious elite, when you leave your comment down below telling me which katana you would buy, please also include the phrase, "Excellent." And that terrible Mr. Burns impression will let me know that you watched this part. Right, there is more Katana information in that playlist right there. All the stuff you need is in the video description, and I will see you very soon, I guess. Thanks for watching. I'm going to go off and lug this in the back of my car. Cheers. Bye-bye.